Okay, good morning, everybody. It is Friday, March 18th, 2022, and we're going to go ahead and get started here with our pre-market analysis like we do every morning. Just to quickly review yesterday, remember we said that off of the previous daily high, we had a bearish divergence on multiple time frames. So if the market could hold below, we were going to stay as sellers, but if the market could push up and get through that previous daily high, we would be negating that bearish divergence, and then we were looking for a push up into, higher highs. In fact, our target to the upside was this area up here. If you guys remember, we drew a fib across the whole sell-off, and it turns out that this level right here was the 60, well, this was the 61.8 retracement of kind of the smaller leg. So just to kind of show you from a larger perspective here, when you zoom out, we have the whole sell-off from the all-time high all the way down to the low from like a month or two ago. But then we have the smaller leg here. Remember the double top we had and then the pullback. This leg right here, again, looking at it from the perspective that this was the major leg down, then there was a leg up here, and then you can see there was this little double top, and then this new leg down. So this new leg down right here from the double top down to the low we made a few weeks ago, the 61.8 retracement of that leg. All right, so just to kind of familiarize yourself with what we're talking about here, this major double top we made, I don't even know, 2 months ago now, back in February, all the way down to the low we made at the end of February, that's the leg I'm talking about. And again, if you put a fib up here from the high down to the low, we came up, we did something I believe right around the 38. We did come right into the 50 and get like a 10, 15, 20 point rejection. But then yesterday, remember we said we had the last major fib level in the books, which was going to be the 61.8 up around 43.93. Well, let's look at what happened here. Well, market attempted to break out. We actually got rejected right at the close from Wednesday, and this was just after the open. You can see some of the trades we took long, and then had some resistance here, and then it started to pull back and sell off. So at that point, when we came up and tested the previous daily high and kind of failed right in front of it, I was kind of convinced that that was it. We were going to start selling off. So I did try a long right off our orange power level that did get a decent follow through, but for the most part, I started to try and sell the market and got a beautiful entry right off the back end of our orange power level. So a nice long off the top end of it, and then once we got below, I got short off the back end of it and got a really nice trade there at the end of my morning trading session. And then from there, let's see what happened. We were done here at 8 a.m. And then when I left, the market started chugging and it got through the previous daily high. So at that point, our bearish bias from that level was over with because we were now breaking through. And as you can see here, we broke through and then we basically held the previous daily high for multiple attempts. Of course, those bastards in the market brought it a little bit further down to probably take out some of these folks over here. Came right to our 200. Look at how beautiful. Right to the 200, to the tick. And then where did we go? You see that little dotted blue line coming across up top here, that second dotted line? That is the 61.8 retracement I just told you about. We literally came up to it, basically to the tick. What did it break by? One or two little ticks there. Pulled back, let's say from 93 all the way down to 77. So what is that? A 16-point push? A 16-point push down from our 61.8 level that we specifically mentioned yesterday as a target to the upside. There's a reason we had this shaded right here. We had, again, the 61.8, our power level. There was this other minor eye level just below it there. And there were a number of other things setting up in that area of the chart. So we highlighted that and, again, came right into it, got a 16-point pullback, and then look what happened next. We ended up bouncing and coming right back to it, and in this instance, we actually hit it to the tick. All right, and then we pulled back again for even more. At this point, It went from what, 92.50 all the way to 95.50 for a 20-point pullback. So 16 points and 20 points off the very level that we were sure was going to be a potential resistance. And then from there, it looks like the bull said, we're not done here, and went ahead and continued to push. And look at, once again, as it eventually got through the double top here, pulled back right to the 200 moving average once again, and continued its chug up to the highs of the day. And as you can see here, and if anyone was in our study session yesterday, look what happened right here. 34 EMA crossed below the 200, bam, seller's market into the overnight session here. And as we speak, we're a little bit sideways at the top end of yesterday's range. In fact, we're sitting right here above 50% of yesterday, right? So that's where we are this morning. I'm just kind of curious to see really quickly here if, yeah, so we came up in the overnight session and basically we tested the 61.8, right, and came right back into our expected area of resistance and failed. So some really beautiful stuff, and I think we had someone just join. So I just wanted to mention last night, once again, we had a crossover of our fast EMA fell below our slower EMA, and bam, there was a sell all throughout the Globex session until I would hope you'd be in bed by the point we got the bullish attempt here to push higher. Again, we came up to right where we failed in the morning session yesterday and could not get through, and that was just above the 61.8 of this sell-off leg right here. Right there's 61.8. It's literally just a wick above, a little peak, and then they failed. So here we are in the pre-market session, holding just above 50% of yesterday's price action. So let's go ahead and do what we do every morning. We're going to dial all the way down. There is one thing I want to mention on the weekly charts. So let's go ahead and jump up. So of course our quarterly and our monthly don't look any different because we are still in the same ranges we've been in for 2 or 3 months now. And on the weekly here, one thing I just want to kind of mention is we do have a nice bullish engulfing bar now. So remember I said yesterday, or was it yesterday? I believe, no, the day before that, because we wanted to get through 43.2675 here, and if we could, we would then have a bullish engulfing bar on the weekly. So as of yesterday, we do have that now, right? So we've got this new weekly candle. The low and the high have broken the low and the high of the previous week. And so that is somewhat of a bullish clue. If you are just a candlestick reader, that's the interpretation of what that's saying, that we could expect a potential bullish move here with the subsequent candles over the next few weeks. One other thing we were talking about was a potential bullish divergence on the weekly off the lows, but as you can see, the RVI has actually started to tilt up rather than continue to slope downward like it looked earlier, so it's no longer there. So that's all I wanted to mention up on the weekly. We don't have the bullish divergence, but we do have a bullish engulfing bar. And again, you can look just from the larger scheme of things here and see that we came up and we're still we failed just about 5 points in front of our expected resistance, which was going to be right up around 44.11 to 44.15 here. So probably have a little bit more to go, but let's go ahead and get into our daily time frame. And if you remember back to yesterday, you see this line down here on the RVI. I drew this line because we had, where were we? I don't even remember how it was setting up here. I believe what we had was, trying to remember how it was set up. I think it might have been that we were down lower here on price and the RVI was sticking up just a little bit higher. So I said there was a potential bearish divergence on this bar. I forget how it was originally set up, but it didn't work. So again, going back to yesterday's study session, if you were there, remember we said there's false signals and failed signals. This was a false signal. So even though it looked like there was a signal there, price just continued to push here. And as it continued to push, RVI continued to push. We got a higher high in price. We got a higher high on RVI. So that kind of got negated there. And so looking at things right now on the daily, we are about 5 points lower than this major swing high back here. So just back on March 3rd, the market came up to a high at 44.1150, and then we got the sell-off to retrace the whole leg here. Came back up, and the high that we made right now, again, is about 5 or 6 points below this previous high back here. But if you look at the RVI, it's flat. So we do have right now a bearish divergence on the daily. Again, is the new candle going to continue to go higher, and this RVI might continue to go higher and we won't have it? There's a potential that that can occur. So this could be another false signal. Again, we won't know until today's candle closes. So we won't have the answer to that until the end of today, unless price starts to really start breaking through yesterday's highs. At that point, then we would, and again, get through 44.11 there, we would no longer have it. So it's just something to kind of be aware of coming into the open. If we do start to really sell off here, well, we've got a nice clear daily bearish divergence that's backing up that move. So it's something you want to be aware of. Again, if they come up and they do get through that level, then this RVI continues to ascend, then yeah, we won't have it anymore. So just be aware of that. Again, we're sitting right around that 61.8 retrace of the leg down now. So a logical area to get a pullback from. And I think that's basically it from this daily perspective. I want to get down into specific levels to trade this morning. But I just wanted to mention the potential for that bearish setup. And then again, as I've said for a week now, as we push higher, we've got that 44.11 to 44.15 zone that looks like we haven't gotten to it. Remember, we came just a few points in front of it. So I'm just going to expand this out a little bit. And that's still there. So if we continue to push this morning, 44.11 to 44.15 is still sitting there. If we get through, we still have that major swing low I've been talking about for a long time now, up there at 44.31. And then a little bit further than that is going to bring us to 50% of this whole sell-off from the all-time high. And that 50% level is this next blue line right around 44.47, 44.48. So let's go down now into the intraday time frames and see what levels we want to kind of work with this morning. So on our 4-hour chart, we do have a nice clear bearish divergence off the previous daily high. We saw a potential on the daily. So again, this is like a lot of days. We come in, we have a bunch of agreement with the bears off of the highs. And so what is that telling us? It's giving us a line in the sand for this morning. So if the market does push this morning, and again, it could pull back before it actually pushes, but if it starts to push and it comes up into the high of yesterday or comes just in front of it and it can't get through, again, kind of like yesterday morning, we came up and we failed 2 times from our major level, but then it continued going. It's the same thing here. We could see that the market can't get through here, and that's going to be a clue for me to go ahead and try some shorts for lower. But again, anything's possible. So they could come up and test it, fail, test it again, fail, and then all of a sudden come back up and start ripping through. So remember, there's no absolutes in trading. There's so many different possibilities, but I want to just give you the scenarios here. So if the market comes up, again, whether or not it's 3 or 4 tests or 1 test, if it comes up and it can't appreciably get through, that's a clue that this major signal here is going to hold. So we want to be sellers. Vice versa, if the market comes up, and again, even if it tests it 2 or 3 or 4 times and can't break, but then it finally does break and get through the highs, that's going to be a clue to really get heavy on the buy side for again, the targets to the upside here. So just keep that in mind that we do have the confluence of bearish signals up there. On the flip side of things, if we don't get the breakout through up here and the bearish signal does win out and we start to pull back, we need to be aware of all the stuff that's down below us here just in case that happens. So first things first, for the pullback, we want to consider the entire leg here. I'm talking the major low that we made right off our trend line shifted, never mind. But our major low down at the bottom of this triangle, all the way up to the high we made in the overnight session. And when you do that, you see that our 38 brings us right to about 4,300. And I believe we have a 4298 or a 43. So we have a major level sitting right there. So we've got a little shaded region in there. And then we have the 50%, which I'm not going to shade. I'm just going to leave that on there on my 4-hour chart and my 60-minute, so I'm aware of it. But the 61.8 I see is coming right back into all of this previous resistance over here. So we have this little pocket right around 42.35, 42.35.50 up to about 42.39 there. So these are the larger targets to the downside if it really starts to sell off. And then a little bit further, I have this zone down here around 41.98 to 4200, which lines up with some other things that we'll get into. And then even deeper, the same pocket that we marked I think 2 days ago. So if we pull back down into that major swing high right there, that major swing high is 41.8275, and then there's just kind of a little bit of a range below it that makes sense. So these are kind of from the 4-hour, much larger perspective, some of these levels I'm looking at below us here. And we're going to get into kind of the weeds, I guess, up into the local region here in just a few moments, but I want you to be aware of the bigger perspective, the larger retracements that we're looking at. And then again, if we do break out to the upside, we've already established 44.11 to 44.15 is a pocket. We've got the major swing low at 44.30, 44.31.75, I believe was the actual number. And then we have, if we do get through there, we're right into a really important pocket here that I've had highlighted for like 2 or 3 weeks. And that is, let me just take a look here. That is 50% of the entire sell-off from the all-time high. So that little shaded area there into these 2 gray lines, those 2 gray lines are demarcating a structure zone, a major structure zone. So pushing up through all the other levels brings us right into 50% of the entire sell-off. And again, those gray lines are just about the boundary lines of one of the structure zones. So we've got, again, 44.47 to 44.55-ish. That whole pocket right there, really important. I don't think we have to talk much beyond that. But if the market does rip through all of that, larger target to the upside would be right up into, I'd argue, 44.75. So that's what we have above us. And then here on this current leg that we're making, these are the major levels to watch. So let's go down into the 60-minute where I have all our major eye levels. And we'll just take a look and see if there's anything else to be aware of here this morning. So you can see a lot of these pockets that we've highlighted are right around major or minor eye levels that are already marked on the chart. You can still see I got my retracements up here. And I don't think there's really anything else to add to the picture. So the shaded regions that we've talked about all down below us here are going to be important. Just keep in mind that we have some major eye levels kind of, we have some lining up exactly with where we want to trade, but there are a few that I haven't highlighted that are just kind of out here. So don't forget that we do have the major levels sitting in between some of the major zones that we've highlighted. So keep those in mind here this morning. And then the final thing I want to mention is we have a smaller leg here to kind of consider, and that is right here on my 10-minute chart, looking at the low of yesterday, pushing up into the high of yesterday. And if you look at that retracement scheme, what do we have? Our 50% is the magenta line because that's 50% of yesterday. Our 38 is basically out of play at this point. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and delete it off the chart because it's just a line that's going to confuse you. Don't need it on there. So we've got the 50, basically our magenta line. The 61.8, I'm going to go ahead and mark it here with my red line, just so we're aware that that is the 61.8. I'm going to go ahead and delete the rest of that fib here. So we'll have that on there as a reminder that that is the 61.8 of this leg. So in the smaller scheme of things, just from the previous daily range, these are some of the levels we're looking at. We've got 50% of the day, we've got 61.8 of the day, and then there's our 43.48 power level or eye level, which is going to be important. And that's basically it in this close area here. So be aware of those levels, and of course the previous daily low right there around 43.20 up into 23. Market's going to open in just about a minute and a half now. So we're going to jump down to our short time frames and start to get ready for the open. Oh look, we just got into our orange power level, broke it by a few ticks and got a 3-point pullback so far. I'm telling you that this level, it works so just over and over again. And this is plotted every morning based on, early morning market data. And so it's meant for today. It's going to be most relevant today. But if you go back and go before the line is actually plotted, look at that, right into it, holds it on the upside. It's maybe not perfect, but it's unbelievable how well it works. Again, yesterday we got a long. Where was it yesterday? Believe we're running out of time. I can't keep going here. The market just opened. So have a great day. Have a great weekend. We will be back here next week, next Monday. Bye bye. All right. So there you